Easy. Back to the Prim Show. I am your host, Prim. Today I have a special guest. As always, I love to have on my platform. That's Mr. Vega Bomber.
Howdy, howdy. What's up? What's up? From Dallas, Texas, we saying hello.
And of course, my man at the bottom, the hardest man in show business when it comes to this game.
What's going on?
Okay. I thought about this, right? Because it's Halloween month, and it's funny because I had a trip yesterday, guys. It was a trip that my lady planned for us, and it was a happy mistake. So, Night Watch, you're in Maine,
hmm
okay?
Yep.
So, and I'm in Connecticut, so we had Massachusetts between us,
Right.
and she got these tickets for a horror slash magic show.
Wow.
Never heard of it. So I said, okay, I'm down. And the ride should have been an hour and a half, hour 40 minutes tops, right? It
hmm
was it Stubberton?
It was in Salem. I thought Salem was.
Stubberton, but she thought Salem and Stubberton was the same spot. Obviously, it's not.
Sturbridge.
So it went into a 3-hour ride to the
Ooh.
tip of Massachusetts to Salem lot. That's right in the back. So I'm driving. I'm like, okay, well, I'm thinking I'm going to come across historical district pieces, cobblestone, which there was up there, and that was it. Let me tell you guys, I had a ball. I was pleasantly surprised. And I think, how many blocks was that festival? It had to be over 10 blocks,
Oh
easily.
wow.
They locked down the whole
Wow.
downtown. We're walking through, and I looked to the left. I said, there's a mall. The mall isn't part of this whole thing. So we walked in the mall, they participated,
Mm.
and you walked outside the mall, went down all these. It was just too much food. All the ladies had the witches' hats on. All the men had the cloaks, like the warlock. Everybody, white, black, old, young, rich, everybody was in full swing. Matter of fact,
Wow.
I'm like, this is all right. So we're deciding if we do go back, how are we going to do this? Because that ride was serious.
Mm.
Okay, here we go again. There's my buddy.
Michael.
Right?
Michael.
There's my buddy. Just more people just hanging out with us.
Oh, nice.
Oop, the wrong way.
Who's it?
Like, this is Hotel Salem. But everything was really nice. It wasn't what I expected. It was really update. They had from Thai food to what was it? Cool. It was just everything. It was just everything. So you're closer, Night Watch. If you get a chance, I was seeing some pictures.
Yeah.
Of course, I've seen some stuff, and just check it out. I thought it was worth it. But
Right on.
the reason
Sounds
why I'm
cool.
the reason why I'm doing this one is because I think when it comes to horror movies, I want to take it back and do a reset. So I thought I would go back to the classics and come up with I guess, a pitch.
All
and
right.
get your guys' honest review on it, which your guys are always honest. What do you guys consider classic horror movies? So that's the first thing. Let's get that out the way. I will go to Vega Bomber.
Yeah. So I think when you talk about classics, you got to go back to the Universal. You have to go back to Nosferatu, that was based on the Bram Stoker novel about Dracula. Mainly for me, when you look at that and compare and contrast it today, I mean, that thing was written and produced in the 20s, right? And when you watch it, you go, man, can this really hang? But the one thing you notice watching something like that, Nosferatu, is that without sound and jump scares, that movie is actually chilling to watch because you're making it all up yourself. So, yeah, when you say classic, I go back to stuff like that may even have just been done in black and white.
So, I'm gonna come down to Night Watch. What's your thoughts on this Night Watch?
No, I agree. I mean, you're talking about the where it all started, and for me, I've always, ever since I was a little kid, Dracula, just saying the name, like we said this on my channel too. There used to be a time saying the name Dracula held weight. You know what I mean? As far as like you knew, like, oh, it's about to go
Yeah,
down.
yeah,
And the old school Dracula, I have it on Blu-ray myself with Bela Lugosi. I still absolutely love that film, and it
mhm.
still has moments where it's like, wow, wow, they knew what they were doing. And you're talking about 80 years, 90 years plus, whatever ago, and it's like this is just crazy. But the old school Universal monsters for sure. That's the classic stuff.
Yeah. I'm quite sure you guys see the background here. That's what I put together for us. Universal. So the next one I want to move on to is all horror movie icon were book transferred into movies. Mary Shelley, Frankenstein, so forth and so on.
Hmm.
Um, I think now instead of book, it's like ripped from headlines, like Texas Chain Massacre, Scream, so forth and so, or really incidents that happen and they make it into a movie.
Hmm.
I think they need to go back to books and pick some writers that's really good in the horror genre and bring those stories and ideas to the forefront, or make them to movies. So I think I'm gonna go to Vega Bomber. What's your thoughts on this?
That's not a bad idea. I think that some of the stuff that they're doing today, they're just getting bits and pieces of it, but then it doesn't translate very well because they don't understand timing and tension, correctly.
Hmm.
And I think the books, because they have plenty of pages to write, they can put all kinds of descriptive pieces to the narrative to make it seem even spookier. What I would say is, because I like to do script doctoring a lot, is if they would just take real natural killers,
Mm-hmm.
right, and just go write that what these people had actually did in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, think about the Midnight Stalker out there in LA, California. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that dude killed a whole bunch of people in 130 days, and the police couldn't find him, and he was just driving stolen cars and moving around. They couldn't find him. When I saw that documentary on Netflix, that horrified me.
Yeah.
So, we got some people who are doing some of the stuff for real. So if they would really just go back, and look at that, if they can't take it from a book, we got some real monsters out there. And so, that could be an impetus.
Night Watch.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea because it's funny. A couple weeks ago, I was on vacation with my dad, and I said, he loves movies, so that's why I love movies. When we were growing up, we got it from our parents, and I said, well, let's watch a movie. We were flipping through the thing, and they had Seven on,
Yes.
and Seven is such a fantastic movie, and a lot of people don't really think of it as horror per se, but it's got so many horror elements to it. And like Vega Bowman was saying, the tension that just really, keeps you on the edge of your seat. I think that would be those types of movies, similar to what you were saying, taking some real life things and utilizing that as your structure, something to really have the tension and have some, make you really scared instead of just, just a bunch
Yeah,
of jump scare stuff. Yeah,
the overused jump scares. We still
right.
need them, but we see them coming a mile away. I don't know because we're seasoned, but we
Well,
see them
that's
coming.
that's part of it, but also you got to earn the jump scare. You know what I'm saying? You can't just
100.
pepper it all throughout the movie. It's got to be earned. You look at something like what we were talking about in the other show, Prim, like James Wan. With a lot of his movies,
He mastered it.
yeah, he'll have jump scares in there, but it's not like boom, boom, boom. Like it's earned. It's organically through the movie. You know what I mean? And I think that's what the young filmmakers should think about.
Okay. Well, through this live stream, I will be posting old posters and stuff like that. So let me get to the next question here. Which iconic monster who started in black and white films still get movies made about him to this day? I'll go with Night Watch. Who is this
I
person? Or thing or monster?
Well, I mean, you still got werewolf movies. So unfortunately, and I could be wrong, but in recent memory, we haven't had the best that we could have. You know what I mean? I think the whole mythology of the werewolf, I think, is really fascinating. And I love werewolf movies, by the way. So I just want to say that first. I'm not just
Yes.
crapping on them.
Mhm.
But you look at something like, the Wolf Man, and
Awesome.
it's like, it's just classic, right? You look at things that are more modern day, or even when we were kids, like American Werewolf in London. I mean,
Yep.
just some wonderful imagination and creativity. The transformation scene is still iconic, but as time went on, special effects, CGI kind of started to take over, and I think as a viewer, for me, once you start seeing the it looks so unreal, and it's like it starts to take you out. I mean, you look at something like An American Werewolf in London, which
Mhm.
looks really, really well made, and so forth. And you look at something like the Wolfman that they did. I think it was like in 2000.
Anthony Hopkins and
Yeah,
the
in
guy from
2010.
Sicario. Yeah,
Yeah, Benicio del Toro. I
yeah.
mean, it was a good movie. It was
I enjoyed it.
atmospheric. I enjoyed it too. And the game plan was they were going to try to do practical effects, because you had Rick Baker on board to do that movie. He's
Mhm.
the same person that did American Werewolf in London, and he was ready to try to do better than what he did in 1981 or 1982
Mhm.
when he did London. But the studio executives kind of came on board and said, well, let's use some CGI to
Mhm.
spice it up and this and that. And you started to have a movie that didn't look as good. It didn't feel as real.
I
And
think
that's
those type of
crazy.
movies uh, needs practical effects. What do you think,
Mm,
Vega Bomber?
Oh, I think that's spot on. I agree with that 100%. I think with these movies that you see now is that you're seeing like, okay, so they redid The Fly, and that was good with Jeff Goldblum.
mhm.
Then you saw them redo the zombies, right? You had the original movie called White Zombie back in the 30s, and they've done more zombie movies. So you do get the chance to see some of that. The stuff that really scares me the most is that paranormal stuff, because we've all been in the house and something moved and we're like, what? And we thought, am I
That's how
crazy?
you do it, Vega Bomber. It's like, what?
Right, to be just like, now I know I'm not crazy now, that sort of thing. And so I think that would be pretty good. And I think you could probably do a funny horror movie called Tax Evasion. And it could be about the tax man coming, because that scares a lot of people, right?
Right.
And you could probably do it kind of like Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
They'd have some people just willing to do anything to avoid the tax man. The tax man could be this new, horror monster thriller type thing.
Nice.
That'll work. That scares us literally and figuratively. So yeah. So I think I was setting you guys up for the main question, the main topic. We're definitely gonna jump into it, and I just want to come back to it, and that is, if they made a classic horror movie universe, should they use old or new directors, or both directors? Because I think, for me, I think they need to revisit all these classic icons like Invisible Man, Werewolf, Frankenstein, so forth and so on, and just make a universe. Shoot it in black and white, and have directors come in old and new, from a Jane Wan to a Wes Craven or whatever, to make
Mhm.
these movies. You know,
Mhm.
so that's going to be the topic so far. And I'm going to come down to Night Watch. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that okay. And again, I'm not crapping on, some of the modern takes of movies and stuff. But when they tried to do that Universal, that Dark Universe project, I was
Tom
really
Cruise.
excited. Yeah, I was really excited about it, because I was like, okay, this is going to be cool. And they had that movie, The Mummy, that Tom Cruise was in, which, I won't get too deep into it. Had some good moments, had some ideas, but it just felt like it was too much of like an action film. And it's like, let's get back to the roots of what makes that particular character scary. And I think,
Mhm.
if they did something like what you were saying, like shooting it in black and white, that's fine or whatever. But get some directors that have that type of pedigree. I don't know, James Wan is doing so much stuff. I don't know if he can do it, but Mike Flanagan and maybe even Lee Winnell. I mean, he did The Invisible Man,
Yeah.
and that was a fantastic movie. I actually love that movie, but it really did it modernized it.
Under horror.
Well, and that's what I was going to say.
Mhm.
It modernized it and kind of changed the angle, which, like I said, I love that movie. It's great, but I do think it'd be interesting to kind of go back to the horror roots of these characters, like the Invisible Man and like the Mummy. And obviously, it'd be great to have a new Dracula movie, done right. That Dracula Untold, I wasn't a big
Yeah.
fan of that.
Yeah.
It was action. It was
Yeah,
action.
it was action, CGI and action. It's like,
Yeah, it
can't
looked
we
nice.
get back to the roots? Can't we
Yeah.
get back to the roots?
So that's the thing. Like, when I was putting this together, I was thinking about like, wow, horror movies is basically to scare us, also to build up tension, referring back to Vega Bomber and practical effects. Like, we grew up on Sinbad and Argonaut, all these stop motion stuff, to Clash of the Titans, but these things were used back in the day,
Right.
let's keep it simple. There's new technology where they can still work with it, practical effects, and clean it up if you add CGI and all that stuff. Even the CGI, it's CGI. Even our practical effects are even better now. So let's just keep it simple. Let's get back to the roots. Let's get back to the origin of this. And I don't think everything will have to be in R rating. It can still be PG-13 and it'll be effective. We don't need a heavy body count, but we're gonna need some body counts in there. And
I think to that point, I think if they understood, if you get new directors, they need to understand the classics, what came before it. So when you look at the early classic horror movies, it wasn't about kill count. It was about first the person being dismembered in some kind of way or looking disfigured, right? So when you think of the way Dracula looked in Nosferatu, or when you think about the creature from the Black Lagoon, the Phantom of the Opera, it was just, we freaked out on the fact that this person is just dismembered. They don't look well. And then, of course, it was the slow pace, the tension, and the grittiness of it, like an old hip hop record that still has the little popping of the needle on the old record, right? You got to keep that in there. And then you notice that then horror moved from just seeing something that you think would just be horrible to the idea of, okay, now it's about body dysmorphia. So you think about The Thing and something popping out of your chest, and then you started to see it shift. And if they can understand what came first and why the shift was made, I think a newer producer could probably get with it. But I really like the older producers when they say, I'm going to take one thing and scare the shit out of you with it. And I'm like, that's
right.
And you know what? I think for me, you kind of nailed it. I think you just simplified it for me, Vega Bomber, is to understand the origin and be mindful of when you revisit these materials, these iconic, monsters and stuff.
Absolutely.
So the next question I want to move on to: what should be the cutoff point to be considered a classic horror movie? Every 30 years, like 1930 to 1960s? Have to put it out there, guys. So I'm gonna come down to a night watch. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I guess you could use 30 years. I mean, because that covers a nice little array of movies that even when I was a kid, I'd watch or see the replays of stuff or whatever at my grandmother's house on the weekend. Yeah, I think
look at The Exorcist. That's a recent iconic one. The Exorcist. You said The Fly.
Yeah.
These are 70s, 80s. Nightmare on Elm Street, Jason, Halloween. This is our generation iconic horror movies. So moving forward, this will be 30 years. Vega Bomber, what's your thoughts?
I think you could make an argument for going 30 years, even if you went just back maybe 5 more years, right? You could include some of those greater horror films from the 70s that were starting to turn, like things like Aliens, right? Like
Mhm.
most people don't think of that as a horror film, but really I would argue that it is, right? And so that's 79,
Absolutely.
right?
Mhm.
And so,
It was airy. I definitely enjoyed it.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So definitely want to move on to the next question for you guys. Is so this format applies to foreign horror movies considered classic by the timeline it was released. So the movies that came out, like the story of Ricky, I'm probably sure you guys seen that. Have you seen that one, Night Watch?
I don't think I've seen that one.
I haven't.
Great movie. Let's do Itchy the Killer.
Hmm.
Seen that one?
Hmm.
Yeah. Would that be considered like a classic?
Hmm.
Audition.
Well, yeah, I mean, because now you're getting into the 90s and stuff like that. I mean, I think for the kids now.
Do you think uh, after, let's say we got 60, right? 70, 90s. Do you think
Mhm.
there are current horror movies that are considered classic or iconic? Because I mean, we right now, our generation, we think or we consider Jason Michael Myers as iconic
Mhm.
figures in horror.
Yeah. Well, and I think today, I think, um, being that movies and horror movies is such a lucrative thing as well, that word iconic, it does get thrown around a lot. And,
Mhm.
now we got, kids that are, in their 20s and teens and so forth. So I think today they're looking at movies like even maybe as uh, as new as The Conjuring as a
Hmm.
classic, quote unquote classic horror movie, which it is. It's a fantastic movie. I absolutely love that movie. But in my old head, I'm not using that word on it yet. To me, it's still like a modern,
Yeah.
horror
Mhm.
movie.
Yeah.
But back when we were kids or whatever, and you're talking about Halloween and you're talking about Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff like that. To me, I think those movies are starting to get to that point where they could use that word, classic.
What about George Romeo, Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead? Are those considered classic?
Night of the Living Dead, I would say so for sure. Because now you're talking, what was that, 68,
Yeah.
69?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
When you talk about those movies, like for me, even like, you talk about Night of the Living Dead, that was like 68, 69. Texas Chainsaw Massacre was like 73 or
Hmm.
something like that. Exorcist was 71 or whatever. So, those movies to me, Psycho, to me, those movies are classic horror movies.
Cool.
Hmm.
Cool. I guess that's something that I will talk to you about later tonight. But we could get something together and do a couple of decades or to 30-year timeline that we put together and see what we can come up with.
Mhm.
I think that'd be kind of cool. And
Yeah.
maybe we invite you back, Vagabond, and we can discuss what we threw together.
Absolutely.
Because it's definitely an interesting thing here, to
Hmm.
talk about the origin, what we grew up on, the first iconic, like, Dracula, the Wolfman, X, Y, and
Hmm.
Z, and just work our way up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, you know what, and an interesting conversation also should be about, what's the future of horror films then? Because going forward, if
Mhm.
we've seen every movie with people going to a camp and getting their asses slashed off and all this other stuff, or
Yeah.
we've seen enough movies of people living in a haunted house and some
Mhm.
entities coming at them, then you
Mhm.
have to ask the question, okay, well, we've kind of seen that. So what's that next thing that you could feature as something that's horrifying? Right. I think
I
that's a
think
great question.
I think for me, um, subgenre. So you got the monsters, slashers, aliens, stuff like that. So I don't think those are the real issue. I think the issue is when they get lazy and they're like, okay, it's a cash grab. They like this, put it out. Just keep
Yeah.
putting it out, putting it out, putting it out. And they come across some directors who like, okay, I appreciate the materials that I'm working with. I understand it. So I'm gonna give you something good, guys. And some people like this is just gonna put me on. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? Because they're looking at the box office.
Sure.
They're not worrying about part critics, but you have some good critics out there, and part what the audience like, what they said about the movie. So that's definitely something to consider and talk about because
it's got to change because it's always changed, right? So if we went
everything has to
from
change.
horror from the 30s, that looks a lot different than the horror that we saw when Jason and them showed up on the scene.
Yeah.
And so we saw that in the 80s, people like that exploitation type stuff. And that's what you saw in that movie. That movie had so much exploitation of just kids and being alone and sex and all this other stuff and trying drugs for the first time, all that stuff. And so I always am curious, like, okay, so what's the next thing that's going to push that next level of people? Because otherwise they're going to be forced to stay in the same pockets, telling somewhat of the same stories, but with different techniques, which is fine and good. But there's always got to be something that transcends, that pushes it to the next level. And that's what I'm curious what it is for horror movie. And I think James Wan is in front of that.
That's a real deep question there. And you got me pondering about it now.
Yeah.
All right. You just put something in my head. Something to consider tonight when I go to work. I'll write it down. I do a lot of writing and stuff. Make some more questions up. But I want to move on to the next one. And that is, we touched on classic horror icons, Dracula, the Mummy, Creature from the Black Lagoon, the Werewolf, Frankenstein. Which one would you like to see again in the movie? So I'm going to come down to Night Watch. Which one would you like to see revisited?
It'd be cool. And it's funny because we, like I said, in the last, whatever it's been, decade and change or whatever, we've seen attempts, at Dracula. We saw the attempt at the Mummy. We even had Guillermo del Toro's kind of interesting take on the Creature from the Black Lagoon with Shape of Water, which was a fantastic.
I was with it until the love triangle came in. I was like,
he was trying to put his own spin on it. But I would like to see a Frankenstein. When I was a kid, I really enjoyed Frankenstein, and if you could, it's got to be done right. We've already said this, but again, it's got to be done right. Practical effects, atmosphere. You're not going for just cheap scares. You really want some tension. You want to really connect with the doctor. You want to connect with the monster. You have to have some good supporting characters in the movie. I would like to see a good Frankenstein. I'd like to see a good movie of all the characters. You know what I'm saying? But Frankenstein, it's been a long time.
Yeah,
it's been a long, long time.
So, Vega Bomber, which one would you like to see?
To actually what Knight was saying, that's exactly spot on. And I would say I'd like to see another Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I'd like to see how they would do that today. That would be a good one I'd love to see, right? Because you can really go into the darkness of this fool. And if you base him off of a modern day serial killer, Dr. Hyde, that would be pretty interesting. A guy that's wrestling with the idea, that he, at night, something starts happening to him. He just needs to go kill. But during the day, everybody just thinks he's the coolest guy because he doesn't cause any trouble. He doesn't do anything wrong. I think that contrast, make him part, Jeffrey Dahmer, and then just part like Tom Hanks. Just you would never know because
that would be good.
Total.
I want to see that
from here to here.
Okay. Yes,
and when he changes into Mr. Hyde, not this stuff that we saw like in the Mummy or in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He doesn't have to be 1,000 feet tall. You know what I mean? Like something that is more realistic, a nice practical transformation, and he's just, whatever, and a more monster-like version of Jekyll, and that wouldn't take you out of it as much as those two movies I mentioned. Because when you see the CGI and they turn into, come on, man, you know what I mean?
And imagine this thing. Imagine this pool, right? Imagine if it's Tom Hanks. Let's say we had an unlimited budget. Imagine we got Tom Hanks. No one's ever seen him in a horror movie, really. So what if we said, Tom, I don't want you to try to act like an asshole. I want you to be the same lovable guy that you were in Forrest Gump and all that stuff, so that people just couldn't imagine that when we showed the twist of you, that's him. And then he could probably end up getting an award for it, which would raise the stakes for horror movies if you could. Because imagine if you got lovable Tom Hanks to play this guy everybody just loves because you just love him. And then when we flip to show you, but see, here's where he's broken. And if he can play that with the same energy he plays the fun-loving Forrest Gump type, Mr. Rogers type, people would be like, I don't know if I believe that that's still him. And then he proves each time he gets worse and worse and worse.
I think down to, well, first of all, he can pull up because he's an A-list actor. Well, you take that away. He's just a great actor. He's A-list, but he's a great actor, so he can pull that off. You need an actor who can carry that role. Like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Frankenstein, and Dracula, those are roles that you're going to have to act. You're going to have to bring it in there, you know? So, yeah, I can see that happening. But you need a person who's really going to get involved with that character and devour it. So they approached the classic horror movie universe with the Marvel movie template, crossing these characters in each other movies. Now, I'm thinking about the black and white iconic horror movies, right? And they have crossed before because I did some research on them, you know?
Yeah.
I don't want a big shing-ding fight, anything like that. That's not needed all the time. I want to go with how these characters are naturally, organically move and they come across each other. You know what I'm saying? So I guess it's going to come down to the writing.
Yeah.
The writing going to play a significant part in this, you know? I'm going to come to you, Nightwatch. What's your thoughts?
My gut punch answer to that question is no.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. And the reason why is because in today's world, once they start thinking about the Marvel approach and the crossing over and all of that type of stuff, then they start to lose track of the story. They lose track of making it work individually before thinking of a franchise, which is exactly what they did with the Mummy. You know, they were laying these seeds for Jekyll.
That was a crash and burn.
I mean, they were flying before they could even crawl. And it's like, guys, relax. They had the Vanity Fair article with Tom Cruise and Javier Bardem and everybody else posing, and like it's like, you guys are great actors, you know. Angelina Jolie is like, but let's just take a moment to sit back and start from the beginning. So I think, you know, down the road, if they were able to make a couple of, you know, whatever movies on Dracula or Jekyll or Frankenstein or whatever, and they're good, well written and so forth, you know, down the road, maybe you could think of some crossovers like they did back in the old days, right? But I would try to stay away from that, because when you start thinking of the universe type of thing and the Marvel movies, you start to get blinders, man. You really do. And DC found out, hey, if you don't do this right, you're gonna look like a fool, you know. So I really do think they should try to stay away from that, you know.
So Vagabond, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I love that you said that, Knight. I'm just going to be plain and honest. F the Marvel template. I do not like that template. That template bores the crap out of me because I can call everything that's going to happen before it happens. Now, they're successful and they're doing things that are right, so I'm not dissing them for that. But at the end of the day, when you're planning out movies 10 to 15 years ahead of time, right, and you're just going to figure out, you're going to try to slot writers in and people, it's like, no, that's not how you make movies. None of the great movies ever were laid out that far in advance. In fact, you take the movie magic of what's happening right now out of it when you do that. The other thing I don't like is Marvel always puts all these jokes in there. And to me, jokes, you know, I know the comedians are good because they have timing and they know how to throw in a joke. But Marvel wants to make it like everybody can quip and everybody can be funny. And then that takes away from the scene. And I'm sorry, I'm old school and I don't like that mess, y'all. I mean, to be funny in a movie doesn't mean everybody needs to be quippy. And I
tell them what it is, Baby Bobber. Go in. Tell them what it is.
I'm going in, right? So to me, I don't want them to do this because they'll mess up the horror genre completely together, trying to mix them all together. Right now, the only reason why Marvel's working is because the action genre and Marvel, people can see it as an action movie and go see it. And people always will go see action. And so that's what's saving them, really. But it'll take a while long before people get fatigued. But to me, those are the most uninteresting stories. They're boring, and they're also handicapped because they're trying to sell action figures. I want to see just a dope-ass movie because some dude sat down and said, hey, you know what would be horrifying? What if we took a dude and this happened, and then these other people couldn't see him, and he was killing people in broad daylight, and all people could see was people falling dead? Like, I want to hear people do some real new shit. But if you get Marvel in there, they're gonna be like, all right, we're gonna get you as a director, y'all gonna come in, then we're gonna fire you maybe if you don't do what we want.
Exactly.
Right. And so
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, that's the bureaucracy. Fight the power. I'm wearing Public Enemy. It's back to you.
Drop the mic. Drop the mic. Okay. So
That was awesome.
I'm tell you why I put that in there, and
Mhm.
tell you why I use Marvel template. And the reason why I did that is because Kevin Feige did something 10 years ago that has never been duplicated or restructured. People try, like you said, they crash and burn. Now, for him to bring Thanos in, now he did that. For him to introduce certain characters without putting origin stories, for him to have all these things well connected from the TV show, What If, so on and so forth. This is what we get. So I'm giving them props on that because they definitely take time with the writers to get with the directors and say, look, Vagabond, you're doing Doctor Strange, Night Watcher doing Spider-Man. Yes, we're going this direction, but everything has to coexist in the universe. And since it's coexisting in the universe, this is what we got. You know what I'm saying? So it makes sense now. The bureaucracy, this and that, I get it, but you got to look at how these guys running that thing over. It's a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, but you have to ask the question though. That's only worked one time, and none other person that tried to do that could do that. And the reason why it worked was because the timing was right. Right. I would argue that the reason was the timing was right. Marvel was getting ready to go under, and they needed a movie, and it just so happens they got the right people to do that first movie, Iron Man. And when Iron Man,
Don Favreau and Kevin Feige did that together, and they definitely made it work. Yeah. I want to move on to the next one, and that is from 1960 to 1990. Who would you consider iconic horror movies? Like, who do you consider? I know we went over this again, but I need some names. So I'm going to go to Vega Bomber and see what name you have for me as an iconic horror movie from 1960 to 1990.
Oh, well, I still like movies like The House of Wax. I thought that was great. The Fly was released in 58. I thought that was pretty scary. The Thing in 51. You had Freaks, which came out in 1932. Not too many people talk about that film from Todd Browning. It was great. The Hunchback of Notre Dame, actually, I still like from 1920.
Oh man, that's a classic.
And The Blob. I would finally to round out the list. I'd say the Blob. In 1958, Irving Yeaworth. The Blob was pretty freaking interesting.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. So, Nightwatch, what movie are you choosing?
If we're doing 60 to 90, I mean, obviously Psycho.
Yep.
I mean, we talked about some of those things. I'm a fan of Rosemary's Baby, even,
Yeah, Mia Farrow.
Yeah.
I mean, that movie, and I've seen it many times over the years. It's actually a movie I haven't done yet as a discussion on my channel that I hope to do someday soon. But the atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you have this lady who's just such an innocent lady, just an average, everyday, just trying to, live her life, whatever. And she is surrounded by devils, basically, you know what I'm saying? And what's I always find it interesting because the viewers, we know, kind of what's taking place around her, the plot and so forth. She doesn't know it, but she slowly starts to feel it. You know what I'm saying? Like when you have that sense that someone's watching you, but you can't actually see them, type of thing. And I think that there's such great atmosphere and tension in that movie. It's very effective. So I think of movies like that.
Well shot too. Definitely well shot.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's still a fantastic movie.
So, speaking of Jamie Lee Curtis, this is the thing I got. It's called FYI, and let me just get this situated for you guys. But I have an FYI for you guys, and that is this right here.
That's such a. I've seen
That's
that
cool.
picture. I love that.
That's her mother.
That's
her mother, who was the lady in Psycho, and of course, Jamie Lee Curtis. So I definitely love this picture. Also like this right here, where she did a guest appearance in Halloween 2.0, where her mother was in the movie with her and came up with talking and stuff. So that was kind of cool, man. I definitely like that right there.
Yeah.
But I want to get into the director. Let's get into the director spotlight. And we're going to talk about this guy right here. Since we're doing horror. These are some of the movies that he made. Quite sure you guys are familiar with him. Evil Dead. Evil Dead 2. Of course, Army of Darkness.
Darkman, yeah.
The Gift, great movie. If you haven't seen it,
Yeah.
I recommend it.
I like that movie.
Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2. And of course, he just completed wrapping up production for Doctor Strange. So, and there's more body of work that he's done, but I'm gonna go to Vega Bomber. What's your thoughts on Sam Raimi?
Well, I think he is adventurous, which is what you need for sure. The idea that he would make a horror movie, Army of Darkness, and make the guy funny, but have a balance, right? Maybe Marvel should pay attention to how the balance was done there, because I think that's a better balance. So if he's adventurous enough to do that, and then that means he's an open box thinker. And I like open box thinkers because they ask the what if question that Marvel's asking now, right? So I give him props for that. So I think he's an inventive person. I think the angles that he chooses to select to shoot from when he wants to show height and when he wants to show drama, I think even the soundtrack work that he has for any of his movies, they don't distract and they're not overproduced. And that's something that people don't talk about when they talk about Sam Raimi much, but his stuff isn't really overly produced. It's really his vision put down on film, and then the actors, he just seems to get the right types of casting going to where people fall in line, where if it was someone else directing the film, it probably would have looked like a whole nother movie. So that whole stuff with Army of Darkness just changed the world for me. It was a game changer. And
Evil Dead, Army of Darkness. It was funny because when I watched Spider-Man 2, I noticed the scene where it was operating on Dr. Octopus. That operating scene definitely paid homage to the Evil Dead and the camera scene. I don't know if people peeped it, but I definitely enjoyed the scene. And right now, hands down, that's the best fight scene in a Spider-Man movie that I've seen on a train, on the subway with him and
That was a good scene.
Man, it still holds up to this day.
And they weren't worried about doing a universe. It was just a movie, make the movie good, you know. And even though Peter Parker and Spider-Man, Spider-Man really, he's got that comical edge to him in the comic books, but it wasn't, like Vega Bomber was saying, it wasn't like this quippy type of thing every couple seconds, and not every character was doing it. It kind of gets played out, and I totally agree about that with the Marvel movies nowadays. It's like, just make good movies, man. Everything doesn't have to be a joke. Everyone isn't that funny.
It's true.
And especially when you're a damn superhero and you're saving the universe. You know what I'm saying?
It takes people out. The action scene, it takes them out. And then again, I'm not the co-sign what Vega Bomber was saying, that everybody's not funny,
right?
And you're overdoing. I think it should be like your quota for jokes in this movie is 4, maybe 3.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, see, I love that.
Not
I love
every
that.
5
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, because I'm definitely agreeing with what you guys are saying when it comes to that's definitely a thorn in their side. And it might be a chink in their armor if they don't take care of that.
Well, because think of it like this, right? The jokes should be used sparingly, just like jump scares, right?
Yes.
Use too many jump scares, you're gonna ruin the whole scene. If you're gonna get people to the point where they won't jump anymore because you've done too much. And I think the humor is the exact same thing. And then I would also say to this as well, that when you're looking at this, you're trying to say, listen, what makes for a competent movie? And you say, well, we need to have people that are not doing very sensible things an everyday person would do, but then they should be able to convey the terror and the tension of what's happening. And with all these jokes every 5 minutes kills all the tension. So you're not worried, you're not scared for them, which you should be.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely agree. But I definitely enjoy the topic. Definitely enjoyed your guys' response and statement on iconic monster movies and stuff like that. Again, if they can find a home, a platform, it doesn't have to be movie release, but a platform that would do justice and they give them a nice budget. I don't want to see them on Netflix. I don't think that's the platform for that. I think Amazon is doing good, and
Yeah.
not Hulu. I, that's my daughter. She's uh,
Hmm.
I don't know. Do Voodoo makes? No, they don't do their own movies yet. I think they should throw their hat in the ring. Let's see what happens. But
Hmm.
again, I just wanted to talk about that. I thought it was something great to start off with the month, since it's horror month for me. Night Watch. I know Vega Bomber. You're in the horror
Mhm.
movies too. But
Hmm.
behind me is the board. So what we're going to do before I leave is I'm gonna move this pen around, and you're gonna have me stop. And wherever I stop, I'm gonna scratch off, and that's the movie I'll be watching.
Oh,
So
wow.
Nice.
if you let me know, and I'll be like, okay, that's what I'm watching tonight. So I stop here. Just let me know.
Stop.
So right here
Yep. Right there.
or down. This one.
Up. Up.
Up.
Go up one. That one. Yep. Right there.
That one.
Yep.
Okay. That's Bay of Blood. Never heard of that movie.
Oh,
Bay of
yeah.
Blood.
All right.
Okay.
That's a good
So
one.
I'll be watching that one, doing a review on
Nice.
it. Next Sunday. Ooh, that was a little finger there. So yeah, I guess through the month of October, I would be scratching these off. But every Sunday, I would have somebody pick one, and I'll check it out, watch it, give you a review on it.
Cool.
I think me and Night Watch have to get together and see if we can pull that off with the 30 years section of what we consider iconic. Um, Maybe Halloween, that's a Sunday, the 31st, your availability for that live stream. Vega Bomber, if you're around, I'll definitely give you the heads up if I can pull that together, get that situated.
Yeah.
This one was good. Definitely enjoy your guys' input as always. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I gotta
Absolutely.
come back to your platform, Vega Bomber, Night Watch. I'm ready
Hmm.
to be a part of that thing that you was talking about. So just let me know.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
man. I'll let you know because without I don't want to. I've been teasing it, but I haven't said what it is. But it is a Halloween special that is starting to come together. As far as the different little parts, and hopefully, it'll be a live show that I'll have on my channel, and we're aiming for Friday, October the 29th.
mm-hmm.
And it'll probably be 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And right now, I've talked to a couple people. I've talked to you, Prim, and obviously anyone else, Vega Bomber. You're absolutely more than welcome. We're gonna have some people that pop on the live stream in and out type of thing too. But hopefully, it can have, maybe 15 different channels kind of involved in it in some way,
Cycling in
shape,
and
or
out.
form.
Just
Yeah.
cycling in and out. Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it should be fun, and the horror community on YouTube is pretty cool. So it's
Yeah.
kind of more just a hey, happy Halloween, everyone type of vibe, So it should be
Cool.
fun.
I'm
Yeah.
with
Our
that.
next two shows to that point, we're on the second and fourth Sundays. We film at, I guess it's 9:30 Central Time, but I take it and then put it on YouTube on Mondays if people can't listen to it live. But we're doing Zach's birthday. Zach is my production manager, and he's a super horror fan. And then the next show is going to be the couple of days before Halloween. So that's going to be all Halloween with Horror Mike. So I might have to tap out to you guys and see if y'all would like to be, zoomed in.
Oh yeah, let us know. We'll come through.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm ready,
man. Horror is, like I said, since I was a little kid, man, horror has just always been a genre that I've had fun with, and it's been so interesting, and I love talking about it. Like today, this was a great conversation.
Yes, it was.
Again, Vega Bomber, appreciate you coming through and making time for this. Night Watch, as always, I appreciate it, and I'll be in contact with you guys. Vega Bomber, let me know. We'll talk through the week. I'll message you, see what's going on.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. It's good to see you again, Knight. So I'm gonna have to get on
good seeing you too, man.
And put some comments back in there so you know that I was there. But I've been checking you out. I love what you're doing. So keep that
man. Yeah, I check you out too. What?
So that's the hardest man on YouTube right there.
Well, hey, you got to do what you got to do, man.
Speak your truth, man. Speak that truth.
Hey, you know me. I like to stand on my 10 toes. All right, guys. So I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys later.
All right, dude.
Later, guys.